What's up? What's up? What's up? What's up, everybody? It's your girl, Yasmin Shiraz. How are you all doing today? Today, we are going to talk about the Justin Fairfax case. It is so much going on. It seems like every day there is a new story or something going on. And so I am going to do my best to come in and sort of give you a different perspective, one that focuses on the impact to society and some of the blind spots that we miss when we are looking at some of these high profile cases, as well as some of the cases involving celebrities. So let's get right into it. If you join the chat, I'm going to see if it's on right now. Join the chat. I'm going to say hi to the chat so that I can take your questions today, okay? High so profile cases as well as and mute it. Okay, so I'm muted now and I'm just going to say hi to the chat. All right? If you have any questions, add them here. Add them here, okay? So we have the chat. It's on mute, so you shouldn't be hearing an echo. If you, in fact, do hear an echo, please let me know because I'm a solo shop today, all right? I'm in my solo mood. So let's get into Justin Fairfax. And I want to break this down from a personal level, from a professional level, cultural, and then hit those blind spots. So to start, he was born in February of 1979. He was a male child born in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Okay. His family moved to the Washington, D.C. area when he was 5 years old. He was one of four children. He graduated from DeMatha Catholic High School in Hyattsville, Maryland. Now, what's an interesting note about his background to me right off the bat was that he was his senior class president. If you remember going to high school and being around people who were the senior president, the class president, voted for this, voted for that, or whatever, these were people who were often very outgoing, very interested in popularity, to be popular, to be seen, and this kind of thing, but also very much so high achievers. And I wanted to, underscore that in the beginning of our story right away. Now, he graduates and everything from high school and he goes into Duke University as an undergraduate, right? Now, listen, Duke is not an easy school to get into. He graduates in 2000 and he gets a degree in public policy. In case anyone out there is not familiar with what public policy is, just think about the people who care about the various policies that are going on and happening in our nation. So things with the government, whether it's city, whether it's local, whether it's state, whether it's federal. People who study public policy genuinely are interested in getting into the government to make sure that the government is operating and moving properly. So he goes and, he goes to Duke University, okay, he graduates or what have you. And then for 2 years, he starts serving on the staff of the U.S. Senate Judiciary Committee, okay? And so a lot of people, if you want to understand how that goes, when you are, say, in a public policy, criminal justice background, you try to apply for internships, mentorships. You're just trying to get your foot in the door. And this is something that Justin Fairfax was able to do right out of college, okay? He ends up doing that for 2 years, and then he goes to Columbia Law School. And so he graduates from Duke in 2000 and ends up graduating in 2005 from Columbia Law School. Again, I want you guys to see, here was somebody from the outside, looked like, hey, he was a rising star. Look at what he's doing. He comes from this really great undergraduate school. Well, his high school wasn't bad either, but he comes from this great undergrad. He goes to a great Columbia, is an Ivy, a law school. He does that. He's, working for the U.S. Senate Judiciary Committee. This is really wonderful. Okay. Now, in between there, when he graduated in 2000, he actually worked on the presidential campaign of Al Gore. Okay. And also, before he got his law degree, he worked on the John Kerry presidential campaign in 2004. So he's very intentional about, what he's doing, what he wants to have happen in his career. Because I'm telling you, if you have people out here who've had internships, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You have got to be on it in order to make these internships happen. So he goes in 2005 and he's a law clerk, right, for a judge in 2005. And then he worked at a DC law firm before that. So in 2006, he marries his wife, the lovely Dr. Serena Wanzer Fairfax. They got married in 2006. He ends up going on to become a federal prosecutor under the U.S. Department of Justice in 2010. All of these things are important because as we get further into our video, I want you guys to understand that sometimes when you have so many accolades, you have so much success early in your career, when you begin to struggle, people can't see your struggle. People can't see your fall from grace. And also, when you have climbed up so high, people act like you can't fall. And so this is why I want to paint this picture of who this person was professionally before we get into the scandal and the tragedy. He was the 41st lieutenant governor of Virginia in 2017, and he was voted in, okay? He was voted in 2017, and he's only the second Black person to win statewide office in Virginia since Reconstruction, okay? And so he was being groomed for the governorship. I want people who are outside of Virginia to understand that he was being groomed to be governor. People were also talking about him being the next Barack Obama. So there were these types of whisperings of these things. And I want everybody to understand that that is a rarefied air there when someone is saying, oh, they see, you're a rising star and they're pointing you out and they're saying you're up next or what have you. There's a lot of pressure that comes with that. Now, he and his wife, power couple. She's a doctor. He's in politics. He's a lawyer or what have you. She was a very accomplished dentist. And I saw some interviews and things like that, comments from her patients, and they just loved her down, right? So when they say she was a community pillar, I believe that she was a community pillar because, one of her patients I saw on a video said, like, whenever I had a problem, she was the only person who would sit down and she would just talk to me about what my issues are. If you've been to the doctor, you know how rare it is because a lot of times they are rushing you along as quickly as they can. But she went to VCU, Virginia Commonwealth University, and she ran her own dental practice in Fairfax. From the outside, the family had it all, right? Now, for people who understand Black excellence and the talented 10th, these were two Black people who were expected to do well, to take on the world. And sometimes that expectation becomes an albatross, okay? Because when things start not going well, nobody believes you. No one steps in to help you. And this is why we have to examine this case the way that we have. Okay, so the next turn is in 2019. So as I shared, he was elected lieutenant governor in 2017. And then there's a dark turn, you guys, that happens right at 2019. So let's go ahead and get into that. In 2019, there was some chaos also in Virginia politics. The governor at the time was facing calls to resign over a racist black face photo. Yes, that was 2019, not 2026. Justin Fairfax was positioned to ascend, but then two women came forward with their sexual assault allegations. Okay, so let's get into those two sexual assault allegations. So just to paint the picture, we have this person, people love this guy, they see him as the next Barack Obama, whisperings of being the next governor, is a successful attorney, power couple with his wife who is a doctor, and then, hit the brakes, we have sexual assault allegations in 2019. So Vanessa Tyson was or is a political science professor, and she alleged that Fairfax sexually assaulted her at the 2004 Democratic National Convention. Okay, so let's do our math here. I love math. 2004, the Democratic National Convention, and 2019, so it's 15 years. So what happened, right? Well, let me tell you what happened. Tyson said she suppressed the memories of the event, but began telling close friends when she saw pictures of Fairfax running for lieutenant governor. So therapists will tell you that sometimes seeing someone, being around people who know the person, it can trigger memories. And so basically that's what has happened. That's what this woman says happened to her. And so she comes forward 15 years later. Let's go to the next one, Meredith Watson. She alleged that Fairfax had raped her when they were both students, you guys, at Duke University. Now, a friend of Watson says she remembers when Watson told her that all of this transpired the day after it happened. Now, it's important to note that Fairfax denied both allegations and said, hey, both of these encounters were consensual. Now, the Virginia Democrats who had been calling for the governor's resignation now faced sort of a situation, right? Because now we have something going on with Northam over the blackface photo. And now we have these allegations with who's supposed to be our rising star. What did they do? So what they basically did is they sort of went silent on Fairfax. They didn't really talk a lot about it. Now, he did not resign, but he resigned from his law firm as a partner, okay? And so this is where, if you're living your life and you're looking at someone else's life as a story, you have like all of this stuff, you go to, undergrad, you go to law school, you get married, you work for these presidential campaigns, you get elected. And so it's just like, if you guys ever been on a roller coaster, you're just going up and up and up and up. And then all of a sudden, you get not one, but two sexual assault allegations. And so now, okay, wait a minute. There's some financial stuff going on. There's some cracking to this facade of perfection, this facade that everything is okay. And again, let's get into sexual assault allegations. And again, I want to point this out too, because he is or he was a black man. Sexual assault allegations for black men, they carry a certain weight and a certain complicated history. We have to acknowledge that, because there have been too many false accusations that people have, murdered black men for. We know Emmett Till. We know all sorts of cases where false accusations led even to lynching. Okay, so not that these women weren't telling the truth or what have you, but what I'm saying is that it becomes complicated on the strength that a black man was involved, because was anybody were these people honest coming forward, or was there another agenda? And so when we look at this critically and we look at it culturally, race does play a part. And if you go back to understanding sort of, his background and how he sort of entered politics and things like that, it seems like he was doing everything right. Heavy on the seams. All right. Now let's go on to the next part of this, is the professional and financial fallout. You guys know, we all know, I don't think anybody doesn't know, if you're accused of something, it's like the allegation weighs more than the conviction. Okay. And people will stop returning your calls. People will stop hiring you. People will stop associating with you. You're no longer on the Christmas card list. And so after this scandal happens, this guy, the rising star, the next Barack Obama, right? He becomes unemployable, right? And I lived in DC. I really raised my kids in that area. It's very political. It's all about, who knows who, and is it good to associate with you? Is it good to associate with someone else? And so one of his friends spoke to the Associated Press and actually used the term that he was unemployable. Okay, so that was very interesting, because he went from being this star, being this or that people thought he was, power couple, In 2017, 2 years later, with 2 allegations, he becomes unemployable. Now, he ended up running again for the governor, in fact, of Virginia, because as I told you, they were already having those whisperings at that time in 2021, but he lost, and the allegations followed him on the campaign trail. And that's why, man, to me, I'm just going to keep it 100. That's why I think it's so mean to falsely accuse people, because people who, not only the deaths, people who end up being killed because someone has falsely accused them. Obviously, someone shouldn't die because someone else is lying. But I just also want to say that as soon as somebody hears an allegation, they don't even hear anything else. Okay, so let's keep going. He ran for governor and he lost. Okay, but then we learn a little bit about the financial fallout, and that is, the IRS had filed a tax lien against the couple for more than $91,000 in unpaid taxes, right? And so when you're understanding and you're looking on the outside and you're like, oh, everybody has this kind of job, they're doing well, they're a power couple, the first telltale sign that something is going wrong is when people's finances start to go south. Okay. Now, I don't care what it looks like on the outside. The finances will always tell the story. Now, court filings in the divorce case later revealed that Fairfax had become increasingly isolated. His drinking had escalated and he had withdrawn from family life. Okay. A judge overseeing the divorce case wrote that his, quote, isolation, drinking, and a lack of participation in family life are manifestations of what seems to be a sense of fatalism and hopelessness. There were talks of suicidal thoughts. Okay. Now, I want to put a pin in it right there for a moment. What I want to talk about is how, and I have a personal sort of story to add into this, is I had a colleague from high school, very popular, voted class, whatever. I don't know what she was voted class for. But when her life did not, at the 10-year reunion, did not end up the way she wanted, she couldn't even face the rest of the class. And this is the unfortunate aspect of sort of living publicly at such an early age, that when people have quote unquote deemed you to become successful and you hit a wall, you're looking at not only yourself in the mirror, but you're looking at the expectation of all these other people who, by the way, shouldn't matter. And by the way, too, what are they doing? You feel what I'm saying? So it becomes, so your idea of success, your, prophecy of being successful, all of these things become this weight on your shoulder, and it becomes almost a prison for you that you can't get out of. And I don't know exactly if that's how, why he didn't get help or whatever. Like, I don't know. But I know that I have had that experience, witnessed it, and that pressure. People care too much about what other people think. And the reality is, if you need help, you have to get help for you, period. Okay, so in 2025, Dr. Serena Fairfax, watching her husband deteriorate, has filed for divorce. So, I want to talk about something. One of my professors at my graduate program, I have my degrees in sociology, wrote a book called Becoming Alcoholic. Dr. Rudy, if you ever watch this video, hey, what's happening? But Becoming Alcoholic talked about sort of the functioning alcoholic. And a lot of what I just shared with you about Justin Fairfax becoming increasingly isolated, drinking escalated, withdrawing from family life, that is very much typical of a functioning alcoholic. From the outside, it can look like a person is just being distant, quietness, checked out. But inside, it's almost like there's a time bomb, if you will, sort of going off. There's something going on in their heads where, the people closest to them, can't see. If they're not in the household, you can't see what's going on, but the people in the household might go, it seems like there's something off, but they can't put their finger on it. And the problem with high achievers, and this is something I'm saying, and maybe there are some high achievers in my audience today, but high achievers are especially vulnerable. Why? Because you've spent your entire life constructing this idea, this life of who you're supposed to be, And when you are no longer on that path to become that person, it becomes a problem for you, and it becomes literally a prison. And so, it's like, it's a problem that, not to blame people, right? But it's a problem that we create, and then we are often ineffective to get the help that we need. All right. And so today, everybody, my name is Yasmin Shiraz. I'm just checking the chat today, and we are talking about the Justin Fairfax case, power, scandal, and tragedy. We are going to get into the Roland Martin comments and what the backlash was there. But I wanted us to break it down for a personal breakdown, which we just did, and the professional aspect of it, where who was this person and that high achievement. I consider myself a high achiever, but I make sure that I don't care what people think. I make sure that I am going to set my goals of what I'm going to do, and I have those goals for me, not for anybody else. Now, let's go into the walls closing in, because when you are a high achiever and you are not continuing to climb that mountain, you are not continuing to scale, that's what it feels like. It feels as if your walls are closing in. By 2025, Dr. Serena had filed for divorce, but the couple was still living in the same home, in separate bedrooms with their 2 children. I want to pause for a moment for this. This is something that often happens with married couples, and it's such a dangerous preposition, right? And what I'm talking about is a dangerous proposition, is a dangerous situation. And what am I talking about? When you have decided to divorce, but you have decided to stay within the home together. Why? Because if one person begins to feel angry, begins to feel violent, begins to feel any kind of way that would harm you, you are already at the scene of the crime. And I know from going through being married 23 years myself, going through a period of time where me and my husband were thinking of separating and divorcing. And it was like, oh, well, we'll stay here together to just figure it out or whatever. But the research shows this is a bad idea. Once people decide that they are going to get a divorce or even get separated, the safest thing is to live in different residences. Why? Reduces the chance of violence against either party. Okay. So in January 2026, Justin Fairfax, according to reports, called police, claiming his wife had assaulted him. Police investigated, and cameras that Serena herself had installed around the home showed the alleged assault never occurred. Okay. Now, I want you guys to hear that, what I just said. He called the police and said his wife assaulted him. And when they came and I guess did their investigation and checked the cameras, it showed that the alleged assault never occurred. Okay. Now, this is something of a huge red flag. Okay. Let's break that down a little bit more. She set up the cameras herself. So I can't, read anybody's mind, but generally a person who sets up the cameras themselves is setting them up because they feel they need them. Okay. So if you're setting it up for yourself, okay, something has triggered your safety light in your head to go off. And it's like, man, I need to have this recorded as to what's going on. Okay. The second thing that was particularly interesting about that is that he called the police and said she assaulted him, but it didn't happen based on the cameras, based on the evidence. But what would be the motive for someone who hadn't been assaulted to say that they had? So again, we're not inside anybody's head, but in my mind, that is a nefarious thing happening, right? And why is it nefarious? Why are you accusing me of something I didn't do? And also calling police so that there is a criminal, there's a police record of it for what is going to happen later to me. Or, you know what I'm saying? That seems like a seed being planted for something to bear other fruit. Meaning, if I falsely accuse somebody of doing something to me and my ultimate intention is to harm them, I have already created a trail that says they've done something to me. That's what that sounds like to me. I could be wrong, but I doubt it. Now, weeks before the tragedy, a judge granted custody of both children to Serena and ordered Justin to move out of the family home by the end of April. Now, again, the judge granted custody, wonderful, and he had time to move out of the home. My struggle with this is that I know that we have laws and keeping people in the marital home and all these sorts of things, but statistically, I know the judges know and the family courts know how dangerous it is, particularly for women, to remain in the home when the spouse is also in the home during times of separation and divorce. So when I see a case like this that has such a tragic ending, I wonder, would the ending have been different had they had to be in separate residences earlier? According to the Fairfax County Police Chief, the paperwork may have been the spark that really set Justin off. Now let's go to that fatal night, which is literally only 5 days ago, April 16th, okay? And we're going to pause again here because there's so much gravity to what is going on, okay? And I want us to really dig in and understand what's happening. Just after midnight on April 16th, 2026, police responded to the family home on Guinevere Drive in Annandale, Virginia. Justin had shot his wife, Dr. Serena Wanzer Fairfax, multiple times in the basement of their home. He then walked upstairs, reportedly, to the primary bedroom and shot himself. Both of their teenage children were at home. It was the son, allegedly, who called 911, not knowing it was gunshots, saying he thought his mother had been stabbed. Police arrived to find Serena in the basement. Justin was found upstairs, dead from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. The gun, however, has not been recovered. So that's very interesting that the gun hasn't been recovered. I don't know where it would have gone. But again, I'm no policeman, so I have no idea. But I want to center our conversation right now and remind everybody that Dr. Serena Wanzer Fairfax was a devoted mother. She was a dentist. She was a pillar to her community, a woman who had done everything to protect herself and her children. Her including those cameras, putting them up, was saying, hey, I want to be safe, okay? That divorce filing, those court proceedings. And although she did those things, she still lost her life. And she deserved better. And so as we try to understand and break down this tragedy, I want to make sure that we are holding space for her because she is the victim here. Now, Roland Martin, the media personality, said some things. He apparently was a friend of Justin, was a frat brother of Justin Fairfax, and was apparently a friend of the couple. I cannot say either of those things. I did not know Justin Fairfax. I did not know Serena. But I think that because of his personal connection with him, there just were some things that were said. I think that people are sort of like, what in the world is going on? But a lot of people apparently, or several men, I should say, in the immediate aftermath of them learning of this tragedy, colleagues, frat brothers, political allies, took to social media. And they posted tributes and condolences that centered Justin Fairfax and not his wife. And people took a lot of issue with that. And I want to say a couple of things. I think that the outrage was real. It was warranted. It was necessary, because Dr. Serena Fairfax deserved better. So I want to say that full stop, 110%. And I also think that when bad things happen to good people, or to people who we thought were good, right? All we do is we sort of robotically, grab whatever memory that we have of this person being a good person. Oh, they're my frat brother. I saw him 5 times and, whatever. And we don't think about, like, well, wait a minute. This person who was a good person to me, clearly something changed if they felt that they should have done what they did. And I think that's the intent, that's the insensitivity that people are calling out. That, and it's an interesting thing, because you might think that you know somebody really, really well, but here's a reality that people do not freaking understand. You don't know nobody as well as you think you know somebody. You know what I'm saying? I don't care. You can look at people on TikTok, YouTube, wherever, and think, oh my gosh, they're so cool. Da, 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 da. You can go to college with people, think that they're so nice, they're so cool. You don't know what they're doing at home. You don't know, do they drink? Do they beat their spouses? Do they hit their kids? Are they a menace at home? You have no idea. All you have is their bio. You have their resume. You have their curricula vitae, whatever that is. That's what you have. And too often we think this, well-crafted, well-curated, set of images and set of experiences is in fact who somebody is. And the reality is, you are not that. You are not the curated images, right? Like, the whole person is actually far more than what they're allowing you to see. So Roland Martin had posted about Fairfax with photos and personal remembrances. And, a lot of people, Black women and allies online, pointed out, a woman is dead. Why are we not centering her murder? Why are we centering her murderer? And so again, sort of, why are we praising? Why are we almost celebrating, acknowledging him, his life, his contributions, blah, 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 blah. Why are we not uplifting the memory of this woman who didn't deserve to die? And that is a major point. And again, we do that because in the ugliness of this tragedy, we don't want to believe this person who we thought was so great, who had so much potential. We don't believe that this person could be the monster who murdered his wife, who was innocent, and made his children orphans. We don't want to believe that. We don't want to believe the person that we sat across from the boule from, or whatever, at the table, the dinner table, or whatever. We don't want to believe that person could be so calculated as to do what was done. And so we hide. We hide in their bios. We hide in their personal photos. We hide in those memories, because to actually acknowledge what is happening is a step too far. To acknowledge that, wait, this woman who treated her patients like they were her family, to talk about her, oh my gosh, How can we do that? Because now I have to face the reality that my frat brother, that my colleague, that my coworker has done something so heinous that I have to reset what I believe him to be. And people do not want to be reset. They don't want to think about the ugliness. And it's not just in this case. You think about the cases where you learn someone in your family is committing crimes, whatever those crimes are. I could have listed a whole bunch of crimes or whatever, but you don't even want to contemplate it. You don't even want to think about, well, gosh, are they really doing this thing? Right? And so Roland Martin on his, video podcast, I don't know, Roland Martin Unfiltered, instead of focusing on domestic violence and Serena's murder, the discussion pivoted to Black men's mental health, status loss, and depression. And it came across as insensitive, okay? In a word, it came across as insensitive. We all can see why. And one analyst called the fallen high status Black man narrative turned a deliberate act of violence into a sympathetic psychological story arc. Now, in understanding, that story arc and all of that kind of stuff and understanding it, in my opinion, right, we can understand what that fallen high status Black man narrative is, but we can also understand that this was a deliberate act of violence, right? To make this person sympathetic, and it's because people do not even want to believe that this guy did this. What I'm saying? We're using all these big, $50 words, but the reality is they don't want to believe their mans did this. That's the whole, I'm going to bring it all the way down to the 4th grade reading level. That's what it is. That's what it is. We can, be highfalutin with the terms, but the reality is it is hard to believe that someone who you thought you knew could do something so heinous. You know what I mean? That's what it is. News One called it directly what could have been an unflinching conversation about domestic violence became a sprawling discussion centered on Black men. Baltimore Mayor Brandon Scott weighed in publicly calling out what he described as coward behavior and demanding better from men in the face of this tragedy. And so, Roland Martin deleted his post or whatever, but from his statement, he said, quote, "We can't tout I am my brother's keeper if we are silent and complacent on these issues," and people heard that and said, but you were silent. You were part of the silence on Serena. And that's the thing, we want fair reporting. We want fair, coverage on these types of issues or what have you. But I do believe because the people who knew him thought so highly of him, I am telling you, they're still processing, did this even happen? And yes, it did. And that's why I wanted to do a breakdown on this. And I wanted to talk about how we never really know people. We think we do, and it's crazy because you don't. You know what I'm saying? There are so many people that present one way and who they actually are in real life is completely different. And, let's just zoom in a little bit on that from the sociological side. Roland Martin had texted Justin Fairfax regularly. They were fraternity brothers. He said they had not spoken in the last year, and yet he didn't know, right? So again, just as another excellent point, Like, you could be friends with people who you went to college with, and because you haven't talked to them in a year, in 2 years, whatever the case may be, when they start to be in the throes of a crisis, you are flat out unaware of what they're going through. You don't really know. And so that's the point. That's why people are also so outraged, right? Because you're talking about who you think this person was 30 years ago. We're talking about who he was on April 16th. So abusers, and the thing that I always want to say too, from particularly from my women audience, is that abusers hide. I'm just checking to make sure in case anybody is on chat. Thank you. Abusers hide that they are abusers, right? You know, if you've been following any of the narcissism talks, they have them on TikTok, narcissism videos on YouTube, where the people are actively talking about narcissistic personality disorder. Abusers hide that they are abusers, right? Like, if you've ever done any type of documentaries, watched any documentaries on like serial killers and people like this, what's the first thing that they say? They're so charismatic. They're so charismatic. So it's not shocking, really, for someone who you would never think to be someone who could do this, could do it. Because that's part of the game, isn't it? Is to trick you into not believing that the person could actually be that heinous, right? And this is not an accident, right? This is the strategy. You know, when you start talking about narcissists or what have you, you know, you talk about them wearing this mask and the mask never comes off. And if you catch them slipping, you get to see some of that evil. And so if we recall a little bit about this particular story, when that phone call was made to the police and alleging that the Dr. Serena assaulted her husband and it didn't happen, that's a big flag right there. That's a big flag, because why would someone call and say that they have been assaulted if they haven't? When has that, isn't that a narrative? I do write true crime shows for television, but isn't that a narrative that we've heard before, you guys? Right? That someone is setting this pattern up. Oh, let me call and say they did that, call and said that. So now there's this public record that I've been assaulted, so that when I come back and I do what I do to them, the record will show, oh, on this date you called the police, on this date you called 911, on this date, right? Is that what that felt like to you guys? You let me know, because that's what it felt like. That's what it felt like to me. Okay? So functioning alcoholism, though, is real, right? The functional alcoholic, right? And there's such a ticking time bomb, because you never know when they're going to go off on the deep end. Like, you just never know, right? So they can show up to court appearances, no problem, right? They can make public statements, they can text, they can post on social media, you know what I mean? They can even, dress up and go out somewhere. But all the time that they are robotically essentially going through the motions, they are drinking themselves into a crisis, right? And so people out here who, if you have people in your life who are functioning alcoholics, that's what makes this so dangerous, because they're highly functioning, but that alcoholism in your system, it's like a recipe for disaster, because it makes the danger practically invisible. Now, I wanted to share a couple of points that we mentioned earlier. I wanted to repeat these because I don't know what you guys are going through, but I want you to watch the videos and so forth, because I want to help people. And the judge's words in the divorce case were haunting in hindsight, and I want to repeat them. isolation, drinking, and a lack of participation in family life. When that judge says that, isolation, if you look up anything regarding mental health, depression, people sort of, I don't want to necessarily say ending their lives or what have you, but isolation is often a big part of it, right? Drinking is medicating yourself, basically, right? Because it is a drug. Alcohol is a drug. When someone has a lack of participation in family life, that is essentially them withdrawing, okay? The court saw it, right? Serena felt it, or she wouldn't have put up those cameras, okay? But here's the thing. The public, the people who knew him back in the day, the frat brothers, right? What they focused on was who they knew, his bio, his resume, right? And this is one thing that we're going to talk about, on my show, is we're going to talk about stuff like impression management. Okay. What is impression management? Impression management is like people are often so focused on what impression that they give you. What is the impression that they're giving you, right? Now, what we have to have some discernment on is the impression that they are giving us. Is that actually authentic? Is that actually authentic? We are oftentimes distracted by shiny objects. We are distracted by the abuser who has a nice car, has a nice watch, dresses nice, is attractive. So we're easily tripped up as people, generally speaking. And so I want to talk to you about impression management too, because people put on performances for different audiences. Okay. So when I go out and I'm out at the grocery store and, I see somebody, I'm like, hey, how are you? Hey, right? That's my happy, I'm happy in my neighborhood performance, right? When I'm here with you guys, I'm like, these are my people. I got to tell y'all what it is. I'm like, hey, I'm trying to come through this camera, right? There's a different energy, right? When I'm with my kids and I'm like, listen, I ain't going for it. I'm more closer to the energy I give y'all. Listen, I ain't bring y'all this far to be doing no silliness, right? But the point is that I'm just sharing with you some of my impressions of as I go through life. But a lot of people have them, and they could be wide ranging to docile on one side to violent on the other. This is real. Okay. This is something that we have to understand. And the higher the social status, the more sophisticated the impression. In the beginning of the video, I talked about people having this, high achiever status and this high achiever desire. And when you have set up your mind in your life that I am going to be a high achiever, and that stuff starts getting torn down, you are feeling like, how am I going to get it back? Or, as the judge, I believe, mentioned, fatalism. It's never going to come back. I'm hopeless. So I can no longer face the world because I am not who I used to be. All right. And so this is what we're talking about today. My name is Yasmin Shiraz. I am a sociologist by trade, but I am a TV writer and a podcast producer in the daytime. And I pull my sociology into all of my work. And today we are talking about Justin Fairfax, a power scandal and tragedy, because why did this even happen? This story is so sad for so many reasons, but this isn't just a personal story, right? This is a pattern, and patterns happen over and over again. Some high achieving person, man, generally speaking, collapses under the weight of whatever. And instead of getting help, the people around him in this case his wife, becomes an innocent victim. We've been talking about intimate partner violence. I did a video the other day about Ashley Janae. I did a video yesterday about the 8 children who lost their lives. But intimate partner homicide consistently shows the most dangerous moment for a woman leaving an abusive relationship is when she actually leaves. We got to sit with that for a moment. I keep saying it. If you come on to the watch the videos, you're going to hear me keep saying it. It is a dangerous time. A lot of times, because of finances, I would say largely, 2 people are staying in the same household and they're going through the divorce. You saw it with Candy recently, our Real Housewife of Atlanta, Candy and Todd. Todd was, I believe, living in the guest house. I saw another story. It wasn't Drew Sidor. I saw someone else that, they're being told to leave their primary residence, and everyone is sort of like, well, wait, I have to stay here. Oh, wait, I got to stay here, and this and that. And research is continuously telling us, everybody, that is the least safe place for you. It is the least safe place for you. And so as we wind down this story, I want to give some love and send some vibrations out to Dr. Serena Wanzer Fairfax and her children. And I want to sort of say a few things as we end in tonight. One, alcoholism is something that has been so popularized in our society, right? Like, I'm so glad that younger people now are not drinking as much. Like, alcohol is not as popular now as it used to be back in the day. I'm so happy about that, because people act like alcohol is not a drug, and alcohol is a drug, and alcohol is a problem, and alcoholism is a public health crisis, right? And it destroys families quietly, right? And then it gets loud. And not enough people, understand. You have all these celebrities, pushing alcohol. And I'm like, I ain't buying none of y'all alcohol. I ain't buying no alcohol, period. But I want to say that. I also want to say to the high achievers out here that this is your life. You don't live your life for the people who used to know you when you were in 2nd grade, right? You don't live your life for the people who, knew you when you were senior class president, and now, you lost your job, and so now you can't face them at the school, at the high school reunion, whatever. No, this is your life, right? And so whether you live up to your own hype or not, there is a gap between who you are and who people think you are. And the only thing that matters is who you are and what you're doing to work on yourself. The other people out in the crowd, let them work on themselves, right? So this weight or this, insanity that we put on ourselves because, now my life has taken a turn, or, my life has taken, it's still your life. You're still in control to turn your life into whatever you want your life to be. So if you're like, I was a high achiever for 10 years and now, I hit the wall and now I'm not as much of a high achiever. Maybe I'm a medium high achiever. So what? It's your life. And the other thing I want to say about that is these people who are judging you, what are they doing? You know what I'm saying? I never feel pressured about what other people are doing or if my life has turned this way or that way, because this is my life. And I want to make sure everybody understands this is your life. Okay. Now, I want to say about the cameras. I want to say something about the cameras that were in the house, and for women and people who are in situations where they need to get out. Dr. Serena installed the cameras herself. That's what the reports say. She installed the cameras herself, right? Because she probably thought she needed them for a reason, okay? I think if you feel like you're in danger and you feel like you need to install a camera to bear witness, I do think that that's a smart decision. I also want everybody to understand that being in a home when you are separating and divorcing is the most dangerous place that you can be, especially as a woman. I want everybody to really sit in that and don't worry about oh, well, I'm in a 5-bedroom home and I'd have to be in a 2-bedroom apartment. You'd be alive, right? You'd be alive. That's what I want us to really understand, right? That sometimes you might have to go backward before you can go forward. But if we can get you to go forward breathing, if we can get you to go forward alive, that's better than you not going forward at all. And we need to sit with that, and we need to understand that in a real way. Okay? In a real way, that it is okay to leave your home for your safety and for your children's safety. I want everybody to get that. And this here with Dr. Fairfax, this didn't have to happen. This didn't have to happen. It seems like I've been doing my videos this week and writing scripts and whatever. And it seems like every time I turn around, it's like this kind of tragedy. But I want the last comments that we make about this story to be about I'm calling her Dr. Serena. That would be, if she would have been my dentist, I'd have been like, hey, Dr. Serena, help me out. That's what I'd have been calling her. She'd have been like, I'm Dr. Fairfax, Yasmin, thank you and please. But she was a dentist who ran her own family dental practice in Fairfax County, Virginia. She was a VCU, Virginia Commonwealth University, I know them well, alumna. And she remained an engaged and beloved supporter of the institution. She was described by those who knew her as a devoted mother, pillar of the community, and a consummate professional, right? She filed for divorce in 2025, a brave act that research tells us dramatically increases danger for women in abusive relationships. She installed cameras in her own home to protect herself and her children. She won custody of her children. She had secured the legal protection she sought. She deserved to live to see April 30th, which was the day he was ordered to leave. She deserved to rebuild her life, to breathe, to go out, to continue to serve her community, to let her children watch her thrive. She deserved better, period, full stop, and she was brave, to leave her relationship, to file for divorce, to get her to put the cameras up there, right? It is so scary out there in the world. And she was brave in so many ways. And in all of the, talk about the tragedy, the scandal, the this and that, I want us to remember her in a way to know that she was brave in trying to stand up for herself and for her children. And I think sometimes we miss that. We miss that when people become victims in the process. Serena deserved better. And if any of my viewers out there are in a similar situation, I do not want you to underestimate. I do not want you to underestimate how dangerous it is to try to leave a situation while being in the same home, because the statistics are saying over and over again, it is the most dangerous place for you to be. The story of Justin Fairfax, this case, everything that we talked about, it's not really about what he achieved. It's really about, what we miss when all we look at is achievement. Stop reading people's resumes and start looking at who they are as people. And alcoholism, I know folks like to drinky drink. I don't drink at all, but alcoholism hides the abuse. It hides emotional abuse, physical abuse, hopelessness, depression. It hides so many things. And yet, soon as something pop off, people want to get a drink. Stop. Abuse hides behind charm. I'm not saying every charming person is abusive, but a lot of them are, because charm is a part of the game. And I can say that personally, I've experienced it. I met somebody, and I'm telling you, this guy, so charming, behind the scenes, abusive, toxic. But you know what? No one would believe it, because this person knows. What do we talk about? Impression management. He knows when he goes in front of certain audiences, he knows what performance it is. Okay? There are a lot of people out here who are vested in their performances to trick you. So for their gain, okay? We have to look for authenticity in people. All right? And so we owe it to Dr. Serena to make sure that we tell this story, and her name leads. We tell this story and we remember her in a way that honors her. And I hope that I did that. And I want to say, you guys, I know I mentioned in a previous video, I worked in a domestic violence shelter when I was a undergraduate student at Hampton University. So I will always talk about these stories and always share tools and resources and always honor the victims and the survivors of domestic violence, because it is our job to try to help other people become in better positions. So I want to have some I want to share the resources for you real fast. If you are someone is experiencing domestic violence, there is a national domestic violence hotline. I will put it in the link. I will put it in the description. It's 1-800-799-7233. And if you are in crisis, you can call 988. Now, one of the things that I always share, because I have worked in a domestic violence shelter, I did my undergraduate thesis at Hampton University on battered women. One of the things that I wanted to share is that there are local resources that are often underutilized because people don't know about them. And one of those things are battered women shelters. And so if you are in a circumstance or situation like this, a battered women shelter oftentimes is like a house that has multiple bedrooms. It has a washer, dryer, large kitchen, what have you. And it has been funded largely by the state or the federal government, what have you, to help women that if you have called and you feel like you and your children are imminently in danger, you have somewhere to go. A lot of people do not know that these exist. They exist, in most cities, I would bet. Now, some probably small cities, you probably don't have them. But I encourage you today, if you are in this situation, I don't think it's the smartest thing to stay in a home where you're trying to separate You could go to a shelter. Those shelters are anonymous. They are monitored, where, they're locked down tight, to keep you safe. So, all right, y'all, I hope you enjoyed this breakdown of this particular case. And though I started the story talking about Justin and his history and his background, I hope that you all will feel that we shared so much about the personal side, professional, talking about Dr. Serena and what she deserved and all the things that she did to keep herself safe and her children safe. And we have to keep those young ones, her kids, in prayer, that, they'll be able to overcome and get through this tragedy. I don't know that you'll ever, not feel the pain of it. Because grief, I don't know, for me, grief never goes away. It's like it might get less, but you wake up one day and don't feel it. I'm not relating to that. So, all right, you guys, thank you so much. That was certainly one to grow on. Peace, and I will see you next time.